You are listening to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, where each week we have a conversation with everyday martial arts practitioners. From the first motivation to train, martial arts enriches our lives and becomes a lifestyle. Welcome to the individual stories of those martial artists living that lifestyle. You are listening to the abbreviated version. For those of you checking this out on YouTube, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. Full-length versions of this podcast can be subscribed to at our Patreon page, is www.patreon.com/malmag. Or individual full-length episodes can be purchased at our Gumroad page at malmag.gumroad.com. Before we begin this week's program, I would like to remind you to check out martialartslifestylemagazine.com to see articles on the martial arts. Click on the Store tab to find products for the practice of Southeast Asian martial arts, featuring Timmy B's brand sticks. Check out the Courses tab, currently featuring a course on the Dos Manos method of the Filipino martial arts. Also check out our Places to Train page, featuring top quality martial art academies from around the world. And of course, check out our events page for seminars and events coming up around the world. To see your school listed in our Places to Train page or your event on our events calendar, contact us at malmagonline@gmail.com. This week I get on Zoom and I connect to Texas and I talk to martial artist Anthony Finch. We talk about how he got involved in martial arts, opening his own school pretty early on, switching from karate to JKD, Kali, and many of the other martial arts taught by Gibsons Martial Arts in Oklahoma, and just going back to being a student after many years of teaching, and much more. Sit back and enjoy. Welcome to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, and today I'm going back to Texas on Zoom here. Seems to me there's a lot of people in Texas, or at least a lot of martial artists, as I've been interviewing a few from there of late. And this is a gentleman that I've had fun talking with on that sewage that is the social media martial arts groups. And we seem to get along well, so I thought I would pull him on here in the podcast and kind of more meet him in a talk formally and get to know him a little better. So this is Anthony Finch. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Well, thanks for having me, Tim.
Absolutely. And I'm kind of enjoying it. You know, normally, again, we don't put the video out. We just sort of, it's all audio, and then YouTube will be sort of a photo montage. But man, this gentleman's sitting here in this like very professional setup. He says it belongs to his son, but I tell you what, Anthony looks like a pro podcaster right here. Almost feel outclassed on my iPad and my earbuds.
This is the first time I've been allowed into his studio.
Oh, wow. So we're talking about a precedent here. So
it is.
I tell your son I feel very, very privileged that he allowed a breaking of a rule.
Right.
That's funny. Yeah, I love it. I love the reverse idea. Usually dad's got stuff like the son can't touch. This is the opposite.
Oh, yeah. I was somehow deemed worthy.
Well, watch out. I might have a bug bite you here pretty soon. You'll be like, nope, I want to show myself.
Yeah, he's gone most of the time. So, hey.
There you go. He doesn't even have to know until all of a sudden you're some big influencer on social media. And he's like, what's going on?
I did find out last night, though, that if I even so much as move his keyboard, he knows.
Oh, my God. So he's got like the Archie Bunker chair set up there.
That and a good dose of OCD.
As they do. I think a lot of us in our generation were like that as well. We just didn't know it. Well, shoot. Well, let's get started. Why don't you tell us how you got involved in training in martial arts?
I got started actually January 5th, 1982.
Holy crap. You like know the day.
I do. It was a big moment. A friend of mine, I was in middle school at the time. A friend of mine was taking karate, and that's where I started, as I guess most of us do, started in karate. It was an interesting introduction. It was January, and I arrived at the address that I was given. It was a doorway on a street.
I love this. This already seems like clandestine and like total Top
Oh,
secret cloak and
very,
dagger.
very much. And the
Was there a
doorway
secret
opened.
handshake?
There wasn't, but the doorway opened up to a stairway. Yeah, I went up to this stairway, and at the top of it was this huge room. Now, I come to find out later, this used to be a speakeasy back in the day.
Oh wow.
The bar was still there, as were 100 or so empty bottles that were still up there.
Dang.
Um, the ceiling was probably about 15 to 20 feet high. There was a very large window with an industrial fan that was open, and there was ice on the floor.
You
And
mean like winter ice or drink ice?
winter ice.
Okay.
Um, the first few months I was there, we had to wear, do you remember the, like that Century or Asian World will always sell the little kung fu shoes?
Yeah.
We had to wear those. We couldn't even be barefoot because there was ice on the floor.
Wow.
And that didn't help much because you know those things were slick as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Um, but you know what? It was bitter cold, and I loved it. Fell in love from the first time that I started doing it. Um, and that school, I stayed with that school till I got my first black belt, and that was in 4 years. And in 4 years, we had four different locations.
Wow.
Kind of a vagabond school.
I'm gonna say. I like it. Well, I like the kind of the blood, sweat, and tears and ice. We'll add that to that
I
first
was,
location.
yeah, very much blood, sweat, and tears. This was, of course, 82, so it was still coming off of the 70s vibes of how you did things.
Right.
And my instructor back then, it was like he didn't care how old you were. It's like you got out there and you fought. You know,
Yeah.
there wasn't a kids class, an adult class. There was just a class, and you got out there and fought. If he told you to fight a 40-something-year-old, then you got out there and you fought a 40-something year
Oh
old.
my God. You know what I love about the story? It's so almost mirrors mine in that we didn't have any ice on the floor, but it was about the same time. So mine was more summer of '82. So probably 6 months, I would say, after years after my seventh grade year was over. So I was probably the same age as you were. March right upstairs, karate school. They were PKA guys too. The first class I jump into is a fighters PKA class, and I have the female like United States champion who happens to be the instructor's wife punch me dead in the chest. Like right, like damn, okay, yeah. Didn't care whether I was a 12-year-old kid.
Yeah, exactly. The third location we had, there was a giant fan. I'm talking like 4x4, 5x5, something like that fan that had no guard on it whatsoever. It was just an
Oh,
open fan. And so while you were sparring, you had to not only keep an eye on your opponents, you had to keep an eye on not getting thrown into the meat grinder.
my God. You know, I I want to say I miss those days because it's just it's we laugh at it and it sounds dangerous as hell, but it also sounds cool as hell at the same time.
You know what? Again, loved it. Went, 4 nights a week. Um, and I think probably in that 4 years that I was there, I might have missed maybe a handful of classes. I just was there all the time.
Yeah.
Four locations. I was probably the most um, dependent thing that was at the school.
That's pretty cool. So you built an addiction early on. That's good.
Yeah, exactly. And I got my black belt in '86, and right after that, the school closed permanently, and I didn't have anybody to train with, so I thought,
Oh
well,
man.
I guess I should open up my own school, and found a place downtown and opened it up, and
Well,
now I
damn.
was
So you were like just graduating high school. So you're fresh out of high school, 18-year-old opening your own school.
18 years old, fresh out of high school, like within a couple of months. Moved out, got the building downtown, had an apartment in the back of the dojo. And so, yeah, living on my own and had the school at 18.
That's right, kids. Gen X. All these things you hear about us are true. Yeah, 18. Parents are like, yeah, go on, get out. We like to think it was our idea. They like to think it was their idea. I don't know whose idea it was, but we were out on our own.
And I had that school for 20 years.
Wow. Okay. And you were teaching the karate, the same karate.
Right.
Yeah. What
And
kind of ryu was it? Was it an Okinawan or Japanese or?
well, it changed. I started off with a style that was really prevalent around here called Kamishinru. Um, and let me see, I started the school in 86. In 87, and this was through a magazine article. You hear these things like, okay, if your life was a book, what would the title be, right? I
Mhm.
think the title of my book would be A Series of Very Fortunate Events. Um, in 87, I, through a magazine, found the Sokudai or inheritor to be of the system that I had got my black belt in. And we brought him here to Paris, Texas. He was living in Framingham, Massachusetts at that time. And we brought him here, and I started training
And
under
that's
him.
pretty brave because Massachusetts, that's the Yankees to you Texans, right? So that's like the
Very much so.
brave for
Very much
everybody.
so. He thought we sounded funny, and we thought he sounded funny.
Well, he does sound funny. I'm sorry, the Massachusetts folks. I'm a northerner, but that's like one Boston. That deep Boston accent is one of the accents I don't understand of all. I understand deep British accents and Scottish accents, but folks from Boston talk, I'm like, what?
But I was very fortunate to be able to start training with Tony Anisi, and um, he really elevated what I was doing to the nth degree. Um, where what I had learned was, karate.
Hmm.
uh, Tony took it to a whole new level with the katas and the interpretation of the katas and body mechanics, all of those things that were lacking in my first instruction. My first instruction was about get out there and fight, pretty much,
Hmm.
um, and was with Tony for 18 years. And through him, we met Joseph Cowles. Um,
Oh, wow. Okay.
when I would bring my instructor in, when I would bring an EC in, we would do seminars at the local junior college. And we soon discovered that, I mean, this is a town of 27,000. And so it was
Hmm.
kind of limited. We would bring people in from Dallas and things like that, but still the turnout wasn't monumental. And so I co-sponsored a seminar with Tony and Joseph Cowles in Dallas, and had a good response with that. And then after that, we started. By we, I mean me and a couple of people from here. Started training with Joseph Cowles at his home in Grand Prairie. That whole summer, we would go out uh, to Joseph's house, and each Sunday we would train there. And that was probably in '88, I guess. Um, and that was very eye opening. Um, it's hard to explain. When you're so used to the uh, the way karate is,
Uh-huh.
the strict form, I guess.
Right.
And then we started working with Joseph and his Wu Wei Kung Fu. It was an eye opener, really. There was no more of like I've always been a staunch advocate of there's training and there's interpretation and there's application, and with karate it always seemed like it's there, you can fight, it's there, but you kind of have to dig for it.
Uh-huh.
And then so many things are like the hands chambered at the hips and things like that you actually wouldn't do in a real fight. um and then of course with Joseph it was more, your hands are up, it's like a how you would actually conduct yourself in a self-defense situation.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't that long. I guess that was 88. By 1990, and again, I think this was through a magazine article, met Terry Gibson in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and who was under Guru, and started training with Terry. And through Terry, got to actually work out with Guru Inosanto, because he would have Guru up there twice a year. I think at that time, Terry would have Guru up there twice a year, Master Chai twice a year, and then Terry would teach seminars in between. So we were going to Tulsa every other month,
Wow.
training up there, and got to work out with, again, Guru and Master Chai and Paul Dutours and Herman Siwanda and all of these great people. And it was, again, it was just kind of mind blowing. I mean, here I am, the kid that started training at the Ice Floor Dojo, and getting to train with these people that I'd been reading about in magazines for all these years.
Right.
So it was great. I was in heaven, as I could say. But once, and that went on until, I guess, 97, when Terry passed, and trained with Darian Whitaker some, who continued the school after Terry passed.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm not sure what actually happened with the school after Darian. And kind of drifted along. By 2007, it had been 20 years since I opened the school. And it's kind of funny. I was actually driving across Kansas one night. I was headed to Denver, which is like right before Christmas of 2006. And I just kind of had the epiphany. It's like, you know what? I'm tired of teaching.
Oh, wow.
Just decided that, you know what? When I get back to Texas, I'm going to close the school. And I had just decided that I was more interested in being a student than I was a teacher at that point. And there was a lot of changes going on. I had 3 kids by that time. A lot of my students, they had been with me for years and years. Their lives were changing. They were, going off to college, going off to military, getting married. Things were just in flux, really.
Yeah. Life has a weird way of doing things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, at that point, like I said, I was just, I'm done. I never liked the commercial aspect of having a school anyway. I was always interested in, the teaching and the learning, but I never cared so much about the business aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so got back to Texas and did just that, closed the school up in January of 2007.
Wow. Wow. Well, let me go back just a little bit. I want to pick up there in the story, because that sounds like a very interesting transitional period. But so Joseph Kaus, that's a name that I'm going to think a lot of people have heard of, but they're not overly familiar with. So he was a Bruce Lee student, and that I know, but I'm not sure which school he was out of, Seattle, Oakland, or LA.
Seattle.
Seattle, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Joseph was, I guess, one of his first students in Seattle.
Okay.
Had a lot of very interesting stories from that time period. And through Joseph, we met his, I guess you would say, number one student, Joe Purcell. And it was through Joe Purcell that I got to work with Jesse Glover. And so, again, series of fortunate events.
Right.
Meeting one person led to the next, and the next, and to the next.
That's a pretty interesting group, because I think we've all heard the names, and I think people are kind of familiar with the product that came after, so to speak, if we want to call it What did you find? I mean, and you've obviously had experience coming out of the basically what the Inosanto lineage puts out. So, on the other side of the whole JKD story and the creation of that, what was the stuff that Joe Cowles and Jesse, what was that like in comparison?
Joseph, very much like modified Wing Chun. Jesse, I had a harder time. His was a little bit more harder to grasp at first. His non-classical kung fu, mainly the punching and things like that, and of course, heavy emphasis on chi sao with Jesse. But it was interesting, and with Joseph, it was just he introduced us to Kali. I'm not sure where he had picked up what he did with it, but he introduced us to the sticks and stuff. That was the first time we had ever worked with the Filipino stuff.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So there was their emphasis, and you said cheese out, so I guess they were spending more time, say, in what we'd call trapping range,
Right.
doing the mobilization stuff.
Right. And Joseph was too. Now, Joseph, though, his stuff was interesting in that he combined a lot of the trapping range straight into grappling range. So it was like a mixture of Wing Chun and Jiu-Jitsu.
Oh, wow. Boy, and that would be considered like cutting edge now, and here it was back then, right?
Exactly. And of course, all, brand new to us. But yeah, Joseph introduced us to a lot of things, a lot of different training apparatuses that he had made. And I've done the same thing. And that once I closed my school, you don't have anybody to spar with anymore. You don't have anybody to do partner drills anymore. So you have to get innovative. I've got a small dojo at my house now. It's big enough that I've got a wooden dummy, a heavy bag, and one of the bomb bags. That was one of the things I put on the
And this concludes the abbreviated version of the podcast. Please consider supporting the program by going to www.patreon.com/MALMAG and subscribing to the show. You can also purchase this individual episode or any individual episode at our Gumroad page. That's malmag.gumroad.com. Thank you for listening to this episode with Anthony Finch. Next week I connect to Minnesota via Zoom and I talk with Jacob Norden. Our Malmag online store at martialartslifestylemagazine.com has a full selection of Timmy B's brand sticks for FMA and Krabi Bong. Timmy B's brand now selling in Japan as well. Beautiful Timmy B's brand shirts and Dos Manos shirts are available. We also have sarongs, malongs, and wooden training knives. An online course in the Dos Manos method for FMA is available under the Courses tab. More courses coming soon. Check out the Places to Train tab to find schools near you, and click on the events calendar page to see what seminars and events are happening all around the world. And of course, visit our main page for articles on the martial arts. Music by Arthur J. Martial Arts Lifestyle Magazine and the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast are trademarked and copyrighted by TNT LLC.